This episode of Hoochos is brought to you by Brilliant. All right, so just a quick forward. This video was taken down originally for a copyright strike that Flow, the company that creates the flow frames in this video, made against my channel for a 7 to 8 second segment of their website being shown, which I'm pretty sure isn't a legal use of that copyright strike function. However, I'm not a lawyer. They obviously don't want you to see this video, so you should probably watch this video, share it with your friends, and I hope you enjoy. Welcome back to Hoochos. Today on Hoochos, I'm going to be showing you how to DIY your own Flow Supers. Two different ways of doing it: by modifying a wooden Langstroth 10 frame deep box, as well as by 3D printing your own Flow Super. Extremely cheap. And the secret to doing that is purchasing the Flow frames separately. The cheapest Langstroth box that I could find online was $27.50. The 3D print that I'll be releasing later uses $30 worth of filament, so they're roughly equivalent. Obviously, it depends on if you already have the Langstroth box or the ability to 3D print your own stuff. The difference in price between the Flow frames, which come in at $599 for just the frames, no super box around them, just a 7 frame kit. The cheaper Chinese version, which is the auto frame kit, which I could find for $135 on the cheapest website that I could find. This means that the DIY versions that we're going to be covering in this video come to a cost of $630 if you're using genuine frames, and $165 if you're using the off-brand auto frames. I'm gonna leave the decision of which to use up to you. Okay, so what we're trying to do here is make the addition of a Flow Super or an auto frame Super to a normal beehive as cheaply as possible, so that we can get away with putting Flow Supers on as many hives as possible for the lowest cost. This is important to make this style of beekeeping commercially viable. So we don't want to be paying for all of these things that we already have. And most beekeepers are going to already have a bunch of Langstroth 10 frame boxes lying around. So let's have a look at the auto frames. And we're going to compare and contrast them to a legitimate, this is an actual Flow frame. So there's not much in it. The main difference here, I can see immediately, is we are one segment longer. So if you have a look at these frames, the way that they're constructed is they're kind of like a plastic sandwich. The bread, so to speak, is these two end caps. So you've got two plastic end caps, and the meat of the sandwich is these two different injection mold pieces, right? So what happens is these pieces, they slide against each other, they create a honeycomb space. When you turn the key in the end of the flow hive, they shift. There is essentially an open and a close. Open and closed. And this is happening along the length of these devices. They're not glued together, they're literally just held together with tension from these two wires on the top and the bottom. What I've found is that these are too large for a standard Langstroth without removing a single segment. So this is the Flow Hive Super. The flow modules fit into this, however, the auto frame does not. And that's because of that extra segment, the extra length with this device. So if you remove one frame piece, I think it's gonna fit perfectly within a flow hive or within a standard Langstroth box. So I'm gonna try and unstring this and then string it back together removing one of the sections. Let's give that a go. Okay, so I'm in editing and I want to be very specific. If you are using this video to replace your Flow Super on genuine Flow frames, you do not need to remove a section of your Flow frames. Your Flow frames, your genuine Flow frames, are the appropriate size for a Langstroth box already. This is only for the cheaper Chinese auto frames. I just need to lever that wire out. Once I've levered that off, we can take off 2 sections. Got the other side. Perfect. So that is, our wires gonna come off like so. So we've got it all apart. And I don't need to take the sections from the end. I can take them from the middle if I want. I'm just taking the sections out like so and replacing the whole thing together. Now, this is loose now. It's like an accordion. Oh man. Well, I'll know how these go together by the end of this. Okay, because everything can be fixed with a 3D print. I have designed these. They're going to allow us to rewire this without changing the size of the wire. The way that they work, these just fit at the end and you can run your wire up and around them. Okay, so I'm gonna show you how to implement this solution that I've created. However, a little bit later in the video, we are going to explore another creative but destructive, quicker method for achieving this without a 3D print by just removing 2 tabs on the base of your auto frames so that you can fit them into a standard deep Langstroth. I think I've done it. So that one, this is actually really good because it means that you can actually pull it tight at this end rather than the other end, which is actually better than the original design. How's that? We'll put it over the edge, the end here. And at this end, where our 3D print is, we can just leverage it over the 3D print, and that is gonna allow us to tighten it. I think this is actually a better system. So we've got tight on both ends with this 3D print, and we are solid again. Oh, and we fit in a super. How good is that? I've got to print some more of those. This allows us to fit our frames perfectly into a Langstroth deep super. What that's going to allow us to do is to modify existing deep supers without the hassle of creating new boxes. In each one of the auto frame boxes, you will actually have a manual for the modification of a 10 frame Langstroth super. All of the measurements are here. Pause now for the measurements. So let's modify the front so that we can harvest from the hive. On the front of the box, I'm going to be marking out some dimensions. So we're going down 33 millimeters. Interestingly, I've actually made the depth 26 rather than 30. I think 30 is going to drop it down too far. So I'm going to cut down 26 and across. And I've done it the full width of the super. So I'm going to pull these out and then we can drop a jigsaw into it. Okay, don't laugh too hard. Okay, we can just drop these in and see if they fit, which they do. Yep, they fit. Now that I've made the box, they are tight, but you will fit them in. They will just be hard to get out. So what I'd actually recommend here, there's 2 tabs on the bottom. If we remove those tabs, I reckon they'll fit perfectly within this system. This may be something you do if you don't want to remove a section and tighten the wires with 3D print. The 2 tabs you can see at the back, if we remove those, they're going to give us some more room to work within the Langstroth. So just take a multi-tool or something and I'm just going to cut those tabs off. I'm doing this so that we can find out whether it works. Like that. Now, my theory for those tabs' existence is that it gives the bee space around the back of our frames. However, they can just go down and up. So we're not removing that much bee space for them. They can just make their way around the frame the long way. And that's gonna give us some extra wiggle room within our system here. That's worked a treat. So that's another way that you can, rather than removing a section, you can just remove those tabs at the back. I don't think that'll affect the functioning of the frame. So that is your alternative to this spacing system. All right, so all these frames fit into our system like so. So we've got access to the front top, and we have a section of timber that we can use to close it as well. So you might just have to take a little bit off the back of that if you want to use that to close it. Now we're going to cut a section in the front so that we can harvest. So you can make this whatever shape you like. I'm going to make mine a curve going from side to side. We want to look at where our pipes are going to collect from. So we want to make sure that we've got enough on each side so that we can still open our pipes. So it looks like we can come in about 10 mil. So you can see there, that's what my front cut section will look like. So I'm just going to follow that around with a jigsaw. Don't forget, if you've put screws in, to take them out. Beautiful. There we have the window for the front of our Flow Super. It also even has a handhold so that once it's closed up, you still get to be able to lift it, and that's really good too. Let's just make sure our flow frames fit and are accessible. Fantastic. How good. So what we want is we want all of our flow frames to come forward to create one solid glass window at the front, because as you can see, they can kind of move around at the moment. So what we're going to do is, at the back of these frames, there's a place for a screw, and that is going to allow us to adjust the distance that the frame is away from the back of the Super. So we're just going to thread a screw in to each one of these frames and adjust it how far you want this frame forward. Let's see if that worked. Yeah, that's perfect. And I'm going to do that for all of the frames. And all of our frames are now as far forward as they can possibly come. So they create this really nice flush window at the front. This is the top piece. Just using a chisel, we can take off the part that the Langstroth frames would have laid down on. So we're just going to put a chisel like that. You can just move that chisel down. It's not the prettiest way to get a result, but it'll get a result nonetheless. And then you can just clean that up. Can you tell I'm not a woodworker? And there is our front cover, like that. And what we're going to do is, now obviously you can make this out of wood, but I've just 3D printed so that we can open and close our hive. Like so. I'm also going to add in some of these 3D printed handles to the doors, both the top and the bottom, but not before I've given it a quick lick of paint to seal up all the rough edges, and we can see how it looks. This came up looking like $1 million. It's functional, looks great, and has the insulative properties of a thick Langstroth timber box with no windows on the side. I actually really like the simplicity of this design, and it would fit inconspicuously on top of your standard Langstroth 10 frame beehive configurations. Now, let me show you the 3D printable option. So the idea behind designing this 3D print was because there's actually no option for existing Flow owners to purchase the super box that surrounds the frames. And the super boxes that are supplied by Flow can deteriorate rather fast, just like any other wooden beehive box. And because of those windows on the side, there's just more points of ingress for the weather and more chances that it will deteriorate. So I wanted to give existing Flow owners and people who modify auto frames the option of 3D printing their own if they don't have the woodworking skills required. So for this 3D print, I printed all the parts in white PETG. Any parts that don't dovetail together and hold themselves together with the dovetails are able to be glued together with a simple clear PVC cement, which is made for PVC pipes. The PETG sticks really well with this glue. Now, obviously, all of these 3D prints are available on my Patreon as usual, so you can download the files and print them at home. Okay, so for the print settings, the prints will fit on a standard Bamboo Labs 256 by 256 size bed. However, if you're working with the P1S, P1P, or X1C, there is an exclusion zone that you will need to remove from the bed by adding in a small 3D print that will hold back the filament cutter. With the A1, there is no exclusion zone, so you will not need this print. Or if you have another printer that has a larger bed, that is also fine. All of the pieces will fit onto a 256 by 256 bed, and the entire print takes 2 days and 4 hours and 9 plates on the Bamboo Labs slicer. It's a 2.5 kilo print, so that means that if you're getting your filament for $12 a kilo, like I am, the whole print costs about $30. So that is one Flow Super for $30. I'd recommend printing in PETG so that you can use the PVC glue and it's UV stable. Another benefit of 3D printing the pieces is that you can infill it however you like. So the infill will give this print and the Flow Super insulative properties because of the gaps, the air cavities within the print. So you can play with infill densities and infill types to give the most air cavities that you possibly can so that the R value of the print goes up. This is where you can play and you can have fun with your beehive design internally, which is just something you can't do with other materials. All right, now it's dry. We have this piece, which is going to sit onto the bottom here, and that's actually going to stop, there's a gap between the Flow inserts and the base. So what we want to do is we want that gap to be essentially sealed. So you just put 2 screws in and it should just be flush with the bottom the way I've designed it. And I've designed this box with the appropriate spaces at the sides so that they will fit perfectly into this 3D print. And there is our Super. And at the front, we have this spacer, I guess you'd call it, that just slides into place. That's what you remove when you want to access these keyholes, and you just slide it back into place. This is the front, which just slides on. It has tolerances to allow you to just push it in and take it out like so. And there you have it. What a fantastic budget-friendly result. And now all we have to do is treat our frames in whatever way you'd like to treat them, whether that's by applying beeswax over them or spraying them with sugar syrup, and then adding them to the top of your existing Langstroth 10 frame beehives. This makes a great addition to the top of any existing apiary. Just like brilliant makes a great addition to the life of anyone that wants to become smarter every day. Brilliant helps you get smarter every day with thousands of interactive lessons in maths, science, programming, data analysis, and AI. Brilliant is a learning app designed to be uniquely effective. Each lesson is filled with hands-on problem solving that lets you interact meaningfully with concepts, which is much more effective than watching lecture videos. So while you're building real knowledge on specific topics, you're also becoming a better thinker. It's a perfect mix of engaging problems, competitive features, and daily encouragement, which keeps you motivated and on track. All content on Brilliant is curated by a team of teachers, researchers, and professionals from major universities like Stanford, MIT, Caltech, and more. Brilliant helps you build your critical thinking skills on actual problem solving and not just memorizing. So when you're building your knowledge on real world concepts and specific topics, you'll also be becoming a better thinker. I personally love Brilliant's science courses, from the mechanics of simple machines to the physics of electrical circuits, all the way up to black holes. So to try everything Brilliant has to offer free for 30 days, visit brilliant.org/Hoocho, scan the QR code on screen, or visit the link in the description, and also get 20% off an annual subscription. Will you have a look at that? Looks fantastic. Fits right in with my white hive aesthetic, and now the girls can go about collecting nectar and honey and filling up my DIY Flow Super. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Hoochos. Happy beekeeping, and I will see you next time on Hoochos. Good girls.